Just when golf fans thought Rory McIlroy had finally turned the corner, another major story has suddenly put the spotlight back on the four-time major champion. And this time the headlines are about much more than a bad round of golf. Rory has been dealing with a difficult stretch both on and off the course, and his latest comments have opened the door to a much bigger conversation about his future, his priorities, and the changing world of professional golf. The timing could hardly be more dramatic because Rory has just produced a remarkable response at the BMW Championship after one of the most frustrating performances of his recent career. The first part of this story is the form that shocked golf fans last week. After returning to competition following his appearance at the Open Championship, Rory arrived at the FedEx St. Jude Championship hoping to find his rhythm and build momentum heading deeper into the playoffs. Instead, everything seemed to go wrong. He finished 66th out of 68 players at 8 over par, and afterwards he admitted that he felt lost with his swing. For a player of McIlroy's quality, those words were especially revealing. This was not simply a golfer complaining about one disappointing round. Rory openly acknowledged that his game was nowhere near where he wanted it to be. And that is exactly why the latest development feels so unexpected. Rather than allowing that poor performance to become the beginning of another difficult stretch, Rory responded at the BMW Championship with one of the strongest starts anyone could have imagined. He fired a 6 under par 64 at Bellerive Country Club, making 4 birdies over his final 6 holes, and joining a 5-way tie for the first round lead. Suddenly, the golfer who looked completely lost only days earlier was back at the top of the leaderboard. But the real bombshell surrounding Rory right now is not simply his golf score. It is what he has been saying about the future of professional golf. Ahead of the BMW Championship, Rory was asked about the possibility of LIV Golf players returning to the PGA Tour. Considering how complicated the relationship between the two tours has become, fans were expecting a carefully worded answer. Instead, Rory delivered a response that immediately grabbed headlines. He questioned whether some of the players who left the PGA Tour had actually brought value to LIV Golf in the first place. Rory's position is particularly significant because LIV Golf is facing one of the biggest periods of uncertainty in its short history. The Public Investment Fund has confirmed that it will not fund the league beyond 2026, while the circuit has already experienced major changes and the future structure of LIV remains uncertain. That has naturally created speculation about what could happen to players who once made the decision to leave the PGA Tour. Some could eventually want to come back, but Rory believes the road back may be much harder than many people expect. Rory made it clear that returning players should not assume they will receive the same opportunities that were available earlier this year. Brooks Koepka already used the PGA Tour's returning member program, while other major names such as Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau have been connected to the broader discussion about what happens if LIV's future changes. Rory pointed out that the more favorable opportunity has already passed and suggested that players who return later could face significantly different terms. That is where the story becomes much bigger than Rory McIlroy himself. For years, professional golf has been divided by the rivalry between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf. Players have switched sides, friendships have been tested, fans have become divided, and the sport has gone through one of the most turbulent periods in its modern history. Now, with LIV facing financial uncertainty and the PGA Tour moving toward a new structure, the balance of power appears to be changing once again. Rory has remained one of the most outspoken figures in that battle, and his latest comments show that he has not softened his position. But there is another side of this story that many fans may find even more emotional. Rory has also been speaking openly about the difficulty of balancing professional golf with family life. While competing at the BMW Championship, he discussed missing his daughter Poppy's first day of school, a moment that clearly made him reflect on what matters most away from the golf course. For a player who has spent much of his adult life chasing championships, rankings, and historic achievements, those priorities can change with time. Rory is no longer the young golfer who seemed capable of thinking about nothing except winning the next tournament. He is now an experienced champion, a husband, a father, and one of the biggest names in the sport. That does not mean he wants to stop competing. Far from it. But it does mean that every decision carries a different weight. Missing important family moments can hit differently when a golfer realizes that there are certain memories that can never be recreated. And yet, Despite all of those challenges, Rory's response on the course this week has been extraordinary. Only days after describing his game as being far away from where it needed to be, he stepped onto the Bellerive layout and immediately looked like a completely different player. The 6 under 64 did not simply improve his position in the tournament. It sent a message that writing Rory McIlroy off would be a very dangerous mistake. There is also a bigger question hanging over the FedEx Cup playoffs. Rory entered the BMW Championship in a strong enough position to remain on track for the season-ending Tour Championship, but his disappointing performance in Memphis showed how quickly things can change. Only the top 30 players after the BMW Championship will advance to East Lake, meaning every shot matters. Fortunately for Rory, he is already in a much safer position than many players fighting for survival, and his opening 64 has only strengthened his position. The irony is incredible. 1 week ago, golf fans were questioning what had happened to Rory McIlroy. His swing looked uncomfortable, his confidence appeared shaken, and his own assessment of his game was brutally honest. Now, after one round at Bellerive, the conversation has changed completely. Suddenly, people are asking whether Rory can use this momentum to make another serious run at the FedEx Cup and finish his season with another major statement. And this is what makes Rory so fascinating. Throughout his career, he has repeatedly shown an ability to respond when the pressure becomes enormous. There have been disappointing major championships, painful defeats, stretches where his swing has disappeared, and moments when critics questioned whether he could return to his best level. But again and again, Rory has found a way to fight back. The latest comeback is especially interesting because it comes after such a difficult admission. Rory did not hide from the problem after St. Jude. He accepted responsibility, acknowledged that his preparation had not been good enough, and focused on working with his coach Michael Bannon and caddy Harry Diamond to correct the issues. That honesty may have been exactly what he needed. Instead of pretending everything was fine, he confronted the problem directly. Of course, one great round does not automatically mean everything has been fixed. Golf is unpredictable, and the BMW Championship is only one tournament. Rory still has to maintain his form over the remaining rounds, handle the pressure, and prove that the 6 under start was not simply a temporary spark. But after what happened in Memphis, nobody can deny that the response was impressive. There is also the possibility that this could become an important moment in the larger story of Rory's career. He has already won the Masters twice, including another victory earlier this year, and he remains one of the most successful players of his generation. Yet the hunger is clearly still there. The role will Rory McIlroy play as professional golf enters its next chapter? One thing is certain. The story of Rory McIlroy is far from finished. The disappointing week in Memphis may have looked like a warning sign, but his response in St. Louis has transformed the conversation once again. The golfer who admitted he was lost has suddenly found his way back to the top of the leaderboard. The player facing questions about his form is now once again being discussed as a serious contender. And the outspoken star at the center of golf's biggest political battle continues to make his voice heard. For golf fans, that is the real bombshell. Rory McIlroy may be dealing with more pressure, more responsibility, and more personal priorities than ever before, but he has shown that he is not ready to disappear. If anything, this latest chapter could become another example of why Rory remains one of the most compelling figures in professional golf. The headlines may call it sad news, but on the course, Rory has just delivered a powerful reminder that his story still has plenty of chapters left to write. And now the question is simple. Was that 6 under 64 the beginning of another Rory McIlroy surge? Or was it only a temporary escape from the problems that have followed him this season? With the BMW Championship continuing and the Tour Championship waiting at East Lake, golf fans are about to find out. Whatever happens next, one thing is already clear. Rory McIlroy has once again turned a difficult moment into one of the biggest stories in golf. And nobody should be surprised if